does not matter if there's a label.
Right.
It does not matter if they have NPD and it's stamped on something. The point is, do they show you love? And if you don't really know what love is, let me tell you something. When you're constantly walking on eggshells or you're constantly having your boundaries crossed, that is not love. And conditional love is the worst. If I buy you a shirt and you choose to never wear that shirt, and then I end up bringing it up to you, you never wear that shirt I bought you, then that was not a gift given from love. That was given with condition.
Welcome to the That's Where I'm At podcast. I'm Laura, happily divorced after spending years with a narcissist. I believe keeping secrets will make you sick and that they always come to light in the end. As women, we're often told to be quiet, don't share your story, don't talk about the things we go through. It's making women sick, sad, and suicidal. We don't have to be on the other side to share our story. This show is for the women still in the middle of the mess, but showing up bravely as they heal. It's time to share these stories with each other so we can learn, grow, and heal together. I'm Laura, and that's where I'm at. Please take note that this episode may contain subjects that may be triggering to certain listeners. Please take care when listening today. Hi, guys. Welcome back to the That's Where I'm At podcast. Today I have Tiffany, and when we recorded this, she actually had a different name for her podcast. And so you will hear us talking about that, and you'll hear us saying the old name of her podcast during the interview. But I want to let you know that the new name of her podcast is called The Journey Within with Tiffany K. And it's a powerful podcast series created specifically for women seeking self-discovery, self-love, and personal growth. So I hope you'll go and take a listen. Of course, everything will be in the show notes. And now here's the episode. Hi, guys, and welcome back to the That's Where I'm At podcast. Today I have Tiffany. Tiffany is a school teacher, yoga instructor, hiking lover, coffee queen, reading diva, mom to 3 adult kiddos, gammy to 1 precious granddaughter, and a narcissistic abuse victim turned thriver. She is now a podcaster who speaks about healing your mind, body, and soul on her podcast, Tiff Talks Podcast. So welcome, Tiffany.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. Oh my gosh, tell me, how did you get into podcasting? Because we all get in for different reasons, but you have such you're so diverse. So how did you get into podcasting and what do you talk about?
Okay. Well, I tell you what, when I first started going through my healing journey, it's almost like, how like when you start to feel better about yourself and you start to understand the dynamics of why things are the way they are. And I've always loved to talk. I've never met a stranger. I like to visit with people. Yeah. And so my cousin and I were talking one day and she said, some of the things that you share about healing your mind and your body and your soul and the journey that you've been on, why don't you share that with the world? And so it just kind of led from one thing to the other. And when I first started the podcast, I'll be honest with you, I didn't really know how to narrow my niche. So it was kind of like, your diet and your nutrition. Not that those things are not important, but I'm learning to narrow it down with what my passion is. And that's really for people to understand that trauma is stored in our body and that you have to heal in some ways that a lot, nothing against Western medicine, but a lot of ways that we can heal our body from the trauma that we've experienced through a lot of different things that we're not really told.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I know I've tried so many different things as well. I'm trying lots of different things because we are a whole body. And so I've enjoyed not only talk therapy, but so many other things, hypnosis and meditation and prayer and just so many exercise, so many things to get over the trauma that's stored in our body. And then the anxiety that comes from that, which has been exhausting sometimes. I just remember waking up when I first got divorced in the middle of the night, just like so anxious. I'm like, over what? What's happening right now? But, journaling was really imperative, unpacking that. And so I don't know what kinds of things worked for you, but that's been really helpful for me.
Right. Well, one thing we don't realize is our nervous system is just constantly on fight or flight when we're in a narcissistic abusive relationship that honestly, you get to the point where until you get out of the relationship, you're not even aware of it. So one of my podcast episodes is just how to heal the nervous system. And like you said, journaling and meditation are two huge tools that I've used. And it takes some time. So I hope people give themselves some grace and some patience. But it's definitely two modalities that have helped me tremendously.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to be healed immediately. I thought, well, I'll just leave my
Didn't we all?
marriage. Yes, we all want. I mean, I did not have any patience, but I had some really good friends who were like, hey, give yourself some grace. It took me a lot of years to get better. And that almost made me angry because I felt like I was in such a bad place for so long that I thought if I got rid of a quote unquote problem that I would feel better, right? But instead, I'm still healing. There's still things to unravel. I mean, we were together 33 years, so there's a lot of stuff to unravel. So yes, we have to give ourselves time. And of course, maybe people ask you if there's any kind of a timetable, like how soon will I be better? And there isn't one, is there?
There's really not. But I love what you said just now about like, you kind of think if you get rid of the problem that you'll be good. And I very much felt that way. I remember moving out of my nice fancy house into this little tiny apartment. And I thought, this is it. I'm free. I'm going to feel amazing now. But I had no clue the healing journey that I was about to begin. And of course, it's worth it, right? But there's no time frame. So when people ask, I mean, it might take one person 1 year, it might take someone else 7, but you just have to give yourself grace and constantly put in the work, because it's an evolving door. It's just like 1 minute you think you're good, a revolving door, I should say. You think you're good on one thing and then something else triggers you or something else surfaces. And so you have to sit down and sit with yourself and figure out, okay, what does this mean? How do I need to heal this? What does this tell me about myself?
Right. And, I liken it to grieving over the death of a loved one, because grief is so not linear. And so I've noticed that with my healing, there are some good days and there's some bad days, and that's okay. It's like, just keep moving forward, keep focusing on yourself and go from there. And wait, you said something earlier about, I don't know if you had to mention like your first, I don't remember what you said, but it made it sound like you'd been in more than one abusive relationship. Oh no, it was about that we don't even know that we're in this abusive relationship, right? And I felt really dumb because after I left, and then that's when I realized, I've been in abuse for 33 years. That's what happened to me. So did you have that experience that you didn't even realize it was happening?
Yeah. Like, actually, what's so crazy is when I was married, we'll just say NARC 1 and NARC 2 to that way the listeners won't get confused.
Okay.
So to preface this, from my studying, and hopefully the listeners are aware of this, I've always heard narcissism is on a spectrum, right?
Okay.
So you can have narcissism, personality traits. Maybe they're arrogant. They use you as they want to joke about you, even though they're picking on you.
Yes.
And then you have your full blown one that would probably get an actual diagnosis of NPD. So I feel like the man NARC 1, when I left that relationship, I didn't realize that I had been married to a narcissist. And I honestly think it was because he was not only a little milder than the NARC 2, but I was just not aware. And so, like we were just talking about, when I moved into my little tiny apartment and I started decorating it and I thought, oh, my life is finally going to be happy, I started dating very quickly because I had already kind of left the relationship mentally and emotionally a year before my divorce. And so here I was, I was ready. I got rid of the problem in my mind.
Right.
I start dating, only to start dating NARC number 2. Okay. But this is the thing. When I started dating NARC number 2, even in the beginning, because for the first 10 months to a year, I thought this man was my soulmate. He mirrored me very, very well. And we had so much fun that I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't have this in my marriage. I've always wanted to be with my best friend.
Oh.
But then when some of those little red flags started to drop, because I was only with NARC 2 about 2 years, 2.5, I started recognizing that they had a lot of the same characteristics. Like, they lacked empathy. They were very selfish at times. They didn't respect boundaries. They would criticize me often. Like, I never could do anything right. they both lied very easily, and they needed lots of admiration and validation. And I just started thinking about it one day on my way home. And I think it was actually after a really huge fight. And I thought, why does this feel so familiar? I just don't get it. And so I started going down rabbit holes of just some of those characteristics that I just mentioned.
Yeah.
And narcissistic abuse came up. And then I found Lee Hammock's Instagram account, and I started watching a lot of his videos. And I laid my head on narc number 2. And one day my body just kind of tingled. And I thought in my head, this feels like home, but I don't think that home is safe.
Oh, geez. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, so mine, it's not just the healing is not just always linear, but just the learning and the awareness, because I was married to narc number 1 for 24 years, and he cheated on me multiple times. There was zero emotional connection. I always wanted an emotional bond with him. He was very selfish. But narc number 2, I mean, it was like a whirlwind romance, and they were completely different men. That's also what women need to understand. My narc number 1 was a hard worker. He was really driven, very, had multiple degrees, major in the military, was all about money and show. Where the second one was very intelligent, but he was more of a bum, like used me, used his parents, that kind of thing. Of course, I didn't know that in the beginning, right? I didn't even know that he was, he was like that, because he hid all that.
Right.
But my point being is, all those common characteristics of the arrogance, selfishness, criticizing me constantly, I just noticed there was a pattern, and even their parents were very similar. Like, I remember thinking they both had really sweet mothers, but their mothers were also their worst enablers.
Yes.
Like, I could mention something that one did, and the mom would automatically make excuses or try to lighten what and so I even noticed that was similar. And then the father dynamics were very much the same. So that's kind of how I discovered, oh my gosh, narcissistic personality disorder. And I have been emotionally and mentally abused this whole time. And I was even once physically abused by narc number 2 when he got really intoxicated one night. But do you know, the sad thing is I didn't even leave him right after that.
Well, it's very common that people don't leave right away, especially because even in physical abuse, you're still emotionally abused. And that's the hard part. It's that boiling frog syndrome where you don't even realize that it's happening. They're turning up the heat little by little, and you don't even realize it's happening. So that even by the time they may hurt you physically, you're so emotionally, you're manipulated that you don't even want to leave. So I think the statistic is it takes about 7 tries before a woman will actually fully leave. And I always thought I would be one of those women, it's like I would never stay if my partner was doing that until I was. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, you just don't realize it. You don't realize it. And that's why it's so important to talk about some of those things that you talk about, like they don't seem terrible, right? Until we start looking that it's a constant manipulation of this no empathy, cheating if we catch them, things like that. He was a bum, or he didn't work, or you found out he wasn't working. You know what I mean? Like all these little things, the lying and all these things that they start happening little by little. They don't happen all on day one. People who say you got to pick better. It's like, they don't tell us they're abusing us the day one,
Just that, but, also trauma bonding, people really need to research that. It really has a lot to do with our chemicals within our body. Like we have that cortisol when we're stressed that's just pushed out.
Yeah.
And then when they love bomb us and they reinforce that rush of relief that our nervous system wants, then we get dopamine and oxytocin that's pushed out. Right. And your body literally gets addicted to that, because I remember craving narc number 2 so bad when I left him, like for the 5th time.
Yeah.
That I got to where when I got back with him, if something were to happen, I started videoing myself talking to my camera and saying, remember this moment. And I would say the date. This is what happened. This is what he did. This is what he said, because your brain automatically it craves that relief and that reward.
Yeah.
Because you know as well as I do, when a narcissist love bombs you, when it's good, it's good.
It's so
right.
good.
I mean, it's so good. And so I just, and it's funny that you said the statistics about 7 times, because it was 7 times that narc number 2, because he and I were never married, but whenever I left him for good, it was actually the seventh time. But yeah, and even when he put his hands on me that one time, I gave him the excuse of alcohol. I was like, well, he got so heavily drunk and he doesn't normally drink like that. It was my fault.
Right. He doesn't realize
right.
it. Or like you said, it's my fault. I shouldn't have pushed him or whatever.
Yeah.
Because then many times they've told us if we weren't so difficult, then they wouldn't have to be how they are, which that's a problem. That's never okay. We are not responsible for other people's behavior.
Yeah.
And so that's not okay. And so you were saying that it felt very comfortable, that second one. And did you experience that growing up or anything like that?
It gave me the same emotions, but again, it started when I really started, like after I started watching the videos, I started going on to an inner child work.
Yes.
Because so often it's not that narc number 2 was just like my mother.
Right.
It was the emotions. It was the emotions that were familiar. So like I could do something for my mother, like fold a load of towels. I know this sounds very minute, but I'm just trying to give people a little picture to surprise her. And she would tell me how I did them wrong. Like she might thank me, but then she would criticize me.
Right.
She would tell me I didn't need to wear orange, that it didn't look good on me. And in her, so all those types of emotions that I got growing up, like I had to work for love. I needed to do more for love. And you really aren't loved unless you're a good girl. And so it's the same thing when you're with a narcissist. As long as I served him, cooked for him, didn't fight against what he was saying, for the most part, he was pretty good, unless he needed a kick, then he'd start like making fun of me or things of that nature. But what I'm saying is it gave me that same emotion. And so I had to start tapping into, why am I attracted to people like this? Why do I want to stay with a man like this? And when I started going to therapy and my therapist really had me start diving into my childhood, that's when she said, your narcissistic exes 1 and 2 do not have to be exactly alike, and they don't even have to be exactly like your mother.
Yeah.
But it gives you that same chemical of cortisol hit, dopamine, oxytocin, and your body is used to that. So that's why it feels familiar and it feels comfortable to you.
It does. It feels comfortable. And it's that breadcrumbing, right? Where that's like a lot of bad. And then they give you that good. And there's that hit. There's that dopamine hit of the good. That's what I was living off of for so long. And finally, I said, you can't live off of breadcrumbs. You're going to starve to death. We can't live off of, but it's that they do bad, bad, bad. Then they give you the good thinking to make you think, hey, look, it's going back to good, the good times.
Yeah.
Now now we're so good. We're having a great Friday night. We're going out and everybody's happy and we're doing so great. And it's like, oh my gosh. And I remember that too. Growing up, that was very familiar to me too. There was bad and then there was that good.
Yeah.
And it's like a roller coaster, but think about a roller coaster. It's scary, then it's exciting. And, that's how it is. And our body doesn't know what to do. And we hold on to those good times.
Absolutely. Because whenever I would go back to him, it was always those good times that would come up first, which is why I got towards the end where I would start recording myself with tears running down my face, leaving his house. And that way I could go back and watch it every time I craved him, when my body wanted that hit, like a drug.
No, it's so true. It's exactly it. And actually, Lee was the one who, his video that I saw that said, make a shit list of the bad things they did to you, so that when your body is craving that dopamine hit, that you will look at the list. So you can do the list, you can do a video like you did, I made a list in my phone. Nobody was going to see it. I wasn't going to post it. It was just to remind me what all the bad things he did. Because when we're in the trauma bond, our body wants to let me just check social media real quick, see if he misses me. Well, he doesn't miss you. He's already off with somebody else, and he doesn't miss you, and you're going to feel like crap. So look at the list or watch the video.
Yeah. My narc number one was already engaged 10 months after we were divorced. And we were married 24 years. And like I said, he's mild compared to narc number two. Narc number two did finally admit towards the end of the relationship that he just felt like he could not be monogamous. And I honestly I remember looking at him and I said, that's probably the most selfless thing you've ever said, because you're being honest for once. And I said, you're right. You don't need to be, you need to find someone that's okay with having an open relationship.
Yeah, seriously. Well, I was with mine for 33 years, and he was married before we were divorced a year. So wow, yours took 10 months. God, that's a long time. I mean, usually they do it pretty fast. And, we can laugh about it, but the thing, because, instead we'll cry. But the thing why I always talk about this, I talk about it almost every episode, is because this has nothing to do with us. It has to do with them and what garbage people they are, and that they will not spend. We're over here healing. We're talking about all the things we've tried for our healing, and they're off. Let me go find somebody else to fill this hole. Right. To numb the pain, numb the shame that they feel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and and the thing is like you said, we are the ones that go and heal. And I know there's a lot of times people will say, you'll read those memes or those little things on Instagram where it talks about trauma makes you stronger. And then someone will argue and say, no, abuse and stuff like that gives us trauma. It doesn't make us stronger. But in the same sense, it's really the same, because although narc number two was so shitty and really caused me so much damage. I mean, he looked at me one time and said some of the most hurtful things I really didn't think a human could ever say.
Yeah.
And it haunted me for a whole solid year. It came to my mind constantly, but I did have to turn and look at the common denominator, which was me. I was very codependent. I didn't love myself. I didn't respect myself, or I wouldn't have continued to put up with the shit for so long.
Right.
So when I started going down that healing journey, I even recognized, there's things called attachment styles. And I didn't know attachment styles. And I have anxious attachment style, which makes it worse because we really long for closeness.
Right.
And so it's not that I'm thankful for any type of abuse, because no one should take abuse. Any female listening to this, you are worth more, and you need to leave the relationship, and no contact is the only way to do it.
Right,
However, it's also an opportunity for you to rise. Because look at you, Laura, you've written a book, you have a podcast, your Instagram is just growing, and you're helping teach women their worth. And so all of the work that you've done on yourself is it's something that should be motivating, because we do have to work on ourselves, because at the end of the day, we are the common denominator that will stay with men like that repeatedly and treat us like shit. But have you talked on your podcast about the conditioning we've had, though, since we were little women?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, I have talked about it, and I've talked about it on other podcasts, because it's true. We've been societalized to be the good girl, to do the right things. Women or girls, are rewarded for keeping quiet, not ruffling feathers. Okay, well,
boys will be boys.
Boys will be boys. It gets us into
boys
trouble.
like you if they pick on you.
It's so much, and so that's why even now, I posted something the other day. It said, I know. I asked for my wants and needs, or let's see. I don't remember how I worded it. Shoot, let me think about it. Anyway. Yeah, I'm such a bitch for wanting my wants and needs met, or something like that, or I stood up. Oh, that was what it was. Yeah, I stood up for myself. I'm such a bitch. And that is the difference with women and with men, right? How many times have we called a bitch when we're a leader?
Yes.
When we ask for our wants and needs. So The biggest
I
thing
agree.
for me was learning boundaries. And I don't know if it was for you, is
Oh, yes.
learning boundaries, because that was the ultimate act of self-love. Saying I am worth setting a boundary for, like
Absolutely.
this is how you can get to me. These are my boundaries. And there are plenty of people who have crossed over that bridge to come to me saying, those sound like good boundaries. I'm coming over.
Yeah.
And other people who said, yeah, I'm not interested in that. And so they left.
Well, hey, you set boundaries, and boundaries are for us. They protect us. And I just told a friend recently, I said, you don't have to be mean, but if you want to nicely say, no, thank you, I appreciate that invite, but I really don't want to
Right.
attend. You don't have to be ugly and say, fuck no, I don't want to go.
Right.
Just saying, like, you can nicely say, but your needs matter and your opinion matters and how you're treated matters. And stop putting yourself on the back burner. And it's funny because I even, on my recent episode, I talked to a female and I said, if I told you that I knew a girl that was locked in her bedroom and she was told when to eat and she couldn't leave the house and she couldn't go see her family, I said, what would you say? And she said, well, does she need to, yes, she needs to leave. And I said, well, I just described Beauty and the Beast to you.
Right.
And I said, we are really, I don't think society understands how deeply embedded that those little messages start at a very, very, very young age for females to look at the potential of a male and think, oh, like at the end of the movie, he turned out wonderful. Well, let's hope he stayed that way.
Right.
And then,
he saved me.
and and even Ariel, she chops off her damn fin and gives herself legs, loses her voice, all for a man. And
so significant, loses her voice.
Right. So, and just like I said, like girls are supposed to be like you were saying, girls are supposed to be prim and proper, and in the saying, boys will be boys, or on you, he just likes you. No, if he picks on you, you need to tell him to leave you the hell alone.
Right. And then just watching like even TV now, and I was talking to my son about this, and I'm like, God, everybody's gaslighting each other and like not setting boundaries. And he's like, it's just TV. And I said, I know, but we're looking at it and saying this is okay.
Right.
And that it's fine. And that we need to continue to, like, if a girl says no to a date or to sex or whatever, you just have to be persistent and change her mind. Or how about no? How about she said no? And even if she says yes and then later says no, the answer's no. And those are the things that we weren't brought up to, like, defend ourselves and that without being called a bitch. And so I'm okay being called a bitch, but I often will tell people, even when my friends will jokingly say, oh, you're so bossy or whatever, I'll be like, just remember, I'm not bossy. I'm actually just saying what I want. Exactly. And they'll be like, whoa, but we've been taught that and we've been taught wrong. So it's okay to change and it's okay to set boundaries, because you're right. It is about us. This is the thing that I'm learning with toxic people. It doesn't matter. Like we're saying narcissist, but it doesn't matter if they have a label or not, but toxic people will not work out a relationship. So if I have a relationship with you, Tiffany, and I say, Tiffany, I really don't like it when you call me fat or whatever. I really would like it if you didn't do that, or I really don't want to go out to dinner with you anymore. And then you continue, well, I will leave dinner.
Yeah.
But, healthy people will be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I was doing that. And toxic people will be like, well, you shouldn't just walk away, or I'm just joking. You're being too sensitive. Yeah. And so that's why I have so many people, of course, I don't know what kind of questions you have, but the questions I get all the time is, well, is my boyfriend a narcissist? Is my husband a narcissist? I'm like, does it matter? How's he treating you? Like, what does it matter?
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. Because it really doesn't. At the end of the day, you're so right. It does not matter if there's a label. Right. It does not matter if they have NPD and it's stamped on something. The point is, do they show you love? And if you don't really know what love is, let me tell you something. When you're constantly walking on eggshells, or you're constantly having your boundaries crossed, that is not love. And conditional love is the worst. If I buy you a shirt and you choose to never wear that shirt, and then I end up bringing it up to you, you never wear that shirt I bought you, then that was not a gift given from love. That was given with conditions.
You're so ungrateful. You never like gifts. Because I hated getting, even though he didn't really give me gifts, I hated getting gifts from my ex because they were very conditional. Yep. I'm going to give you this, but you have, this is the condition. Like, if I didn't wear it every day or whatever, then, you must not really like it. But it was all manipulation. And so you have to think about, what is your relationship like? Because the label doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I always say it's intent and behavior. If you feel like crap all the time, then what's going on? So then then communicate your wants and needs. And if they tell you that you're too needy and they're not going to change, you might have a problem on your hands, and it doesn't matter what the label is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. My narc number 2 bought me this expensive bracelet, and I wish I had a dime for every time he asked me, "Where's your bracelet? You don't ever wear your bracelet."
Oh my God.
And so even though that sounds, like I said, some things may sound minute, but when it's constant, that is putting your nervous system you're walking on eggshells all the time, because nothing is ever good enough. And it's not good for your health. It's not good for your mental health, your spiritual health, your physical health, nothing.
No, it really isn't. So I don't know if it was for you as well, boundaries, like that was the ultimate act of self-love. But then for me, learning how to love myself had to be done, right? Because you don't want to set boundaries if you don't love yourself. Like, you don't even think you're good enough to set boundaries. So I don't know what kinds of things you did, but that's what I started doing. That's like my only focus, because he had beat me down so bad that I almost didn't want to be alive. It was pretty close to not wanting to be alive. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start focusing on how much God loves me, because I'm a woman of faith. And then also, when people would say nice things to me, I would write those. Oh, my friends say this about me, and I believe this about me. So, like, what kinds of things did you do as you're healing?
Well, things that have helped me tremendously is, like you said, prayer and meditation. I do it every morning. And when I first started, people really need to have patience with themselves, because narcissistic abuse really does alter your brain. And so I would sit down sometimes for 5 minutes, and it would be like, oh, I need to do this. Oh, I need to pick up my phone. So prayer and meditation, 100%. Every morning, that's how I like to start my day.
Yeah.
Secondly, practicing self-love. So say if someone complimented me, almost every single time I would say thank you, but then I would try to rebuke what they said, or I would try to change it. So I started practicing saying, because I became very mindful of it. So if someone said, "Tiffany, your eyes look really pretty. I like that eyeshadow on you," instead of me going, "Oh, I think it's darker on the right side, and I really wish I blah, blah, blah," and beating myself up, I started to really practice saying, "It's much. I got this from Sephora," or whatever, you know. And I know just little things like that over time. Like if someone said, "Oh, hey, do you want to go here?" It did not matter how hard it was. Like if I really did not want to go to that baby shower, it was really hard, because I wanted to say yes, because I thought, oh gosh, they were nice enough to ask me, and I would sit with it. So another thing that really has been key for me is sitting with things. Like I don't respond immediately. I give myself 10 minutes. I've even set a timer before and thought, sit with this for 10 minutes. And then I would learn to say, I appreciate the invite, but maybe catch me next time. That's not a good time for me, or something like that. And sometimes I would get like anxiety, but I was learning to love myself and put my needs first. And just those little things, like I was putting stickers on my mirror and I change them out. I bought Gabrielle Bernstein has a set of cards. I have them around my tub. I change them out about once a month. I read them constantly. And just trying to find other people that I can connect to on like Instagram, getting in support group, reading books such as yours. And because when you feel like you are connected to other women, a lot of times we can help one another rise. And so having that sense of community and just learning to be by myself, because with me, not only having narcissistic abuse, and I'm also anxious attachment. So I like that closeness, and I had to learn to be by myself, which has taught me to learn to love myself. So you could call me tomorrow and I might be in my kitchen dancing with Whitney Houston on, and I would just shoot you a text and be like, hey, can't talk right now, where the old me would have stopped my happiness just, for you or whatever. And I'm learning to, like, my narc number 2 used to kind of like pick on me about my body, especially when I had gained weight. And so now I've gotten where sometimes I'll put on some short shorts and I'll walk around the house and just let it jiggle,
That's right.
you know,
Well,
and
I've talked to
learning to love it.
I've talked to people about that. We have to be careful what we're thinking, because a lot of times it's not even our own voice that we're thinking that we jiggle or whatever. It's like we might have looked at our body and been okay with it, but somebody said something rude and now it's stuck in our head. When you were saying about the taking a compliment, I remember years ago, I really learned how to do that too. Years ago, somebody gave me a compliment and I said, oh, thank you. And then I somehow, had to make some excuse about it. And they stopped and they looked at me and they're like, I feel kind of bad. Can you just say thank you and deal with that on your own time? And I was like, whoa. And you know what? It was so profound, because why do we say, oh, thank you. Yeah, the dress is pretty, but I had to buy it in a bigger size than usual. And so I'm very aware of things like that. And I do the same thing to some friends who struggle. I'm kind of a jerk about it. I'll be like, do you just mean thank you? Like, can we just be done? And they, oh, yeah.
It's funny because I do the same thing now. Yeah, there's a girl at work. She's constantly down in herself, and I'll say, so and so, I love that dress, and she'll be like, oh, I don't know, and I'm like, stop right there. I just said I love that dress on you, and then she'll go, oh, thank you. So and it's also, like you said, the thoughts we have, because I've read in a million places that we aren't our thoughts. We are the observer of our thoughts. And then we have this little wounded inner child. We have the ego that wants to protect the wounded child. And so once you become aware of your higher self, and that takes a lot of inner healing for sure.
It does.
But you're right, being very aware of your thoughts and switching those thoughts. Because I'm much faster about reframing things, or I don't down myself near as much as I used to. And to me, it just takes practice. It's just that awareness and that practice. And journaling, I used to journal heavily about my feelings, but I would always, always, always end it with things that I was grateful for. 3 things I was grateful for, and 1 compliment towards myself. And that was key. And I did that for probably about 9 months.
I love that, because I also put things up in my bathroom, but I have it on the inside of my medicine cabinet. I just stick Post-its and things that are really inspiring, Christian, scripture cards and stuff like that. And just, or some quotes I really liked. So that's been really helpful, because seeing those things, those positive things, especially when you are looking in the mirror, is so important, because that's a hard time for some people, that they don't want to look in the mirror, and so that's been really good. And the journaling for me, of course, has been imperative. I think when you journal, you can also see your progress, because as we're healing, you don't realize your progress, because we have a bad day and we go, oh, that's it, I blew it. But if you think about, I had 45 good days, I had 1 bad day. It's okay. These things are okay. And it's hard when we're in a trauma bond and we're seeing them go off with somebody else and be engaged or married to somebody else. It's okay. And so I think journaling is so important, because it really helps us see our progress when we don't even realize. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. Well, journaling, because like you said, if I have 3 different journals, and I will never throw them away, probably. I don't know. I might one day, but right now I still have them, and I'm going to keep them. But you're right. If I go back to the very first journal compared to the last 3rd journal, I'm drastically different. And that's another thing I started to recognize through that transition from the first journal to the second journal, that I didn't even really know who I was. I knew had been a wife. I knew that I was a mother. I knew that I was a school teacher. And then, of course, with narc number 2, I was a girlfriend. But I was so busy doing for other people that I didn't even really know who I was.
Wow.
And so I had to figure out well, what do you like to do, Tiffany? And so I started hiking more. I started making sure that once or twice a week, I'd meet with one of my girlfriends to have coffee and just catch up. I started a yoga class, and that's what led me to wanting to become an instructor because I started going to this class every Tuesday and every Thursday. And I even remember feeling kind of awkward when I first went because I wasn't used to doing a lot of stuff for me.
Right.
And so with that journaling, it kind of showed me if people can be consistent with it, you start to recognize, like in the beginning, I was like writing these patterns of like, don't know myself. I'm writing about my day at school, or I'm writing about my children, or
Yes.
writing about my pain from the relationships. I owned that. I knew that I had been abused. But as far as like discovering yourself, and when people start to do that, they'll start to love themselves because I'm a pretty cool person to hang out with.
Right.
And I figured that out once I started doing it. When I started hanging out with
It's so
myself,
true.
figured out how great I am.
And, if you're in a hurry to get into another relationship, I have found that if you're taking the time to get to know yourself and your values and your boundaries,
Yeah.
you got to be able to spend that time alone before you get in with somebody else so that we don't accidentally get bamboozled again and get into the wrong relationship and all that stuff. So I've had a lot of peace over here. And so that's what I've been working on because I didn't have a lot of peace before.
Right.
And one of the things you were saying about the yoga and all that is my therapist said, because the first time somebody asked me if I wanted to go hiking, I actually cried because that's what my ex liked to do. And I said, I don't know if I like hiking. And my therapist was like, you can just go hiking and see if you like it. And I was like, that's a great idea. And so I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she said, say yes to a lot of good things. She said, don't just say yes to everything because there's plenty of time for Netflix and wine. There's plenty of time for that. But but you have to know what your goals are. Even if you don't have physical goals like a podcast or a book, none of that stuff. I'm talking about, I want to be healthy. I want my mental health to be better. So Netflix and wine didn't always work out for me to always numb myself because as when you leave abuse, you start to get clarity. And as I started to get clarity, I was like, oh, when I do this activity, I feel so unbelievably good. I have good dopamine hitting me, good endorphins, all that. I actually sleep. So that's what I was focusing on. I was focusing on the mind part.
Right.
It's part of my body, but that mind part, that's what has been the biggest journey for me.
Yeah. Well, and even when you were talking about the mind part, I used to listen to different guided meditations at night. Because a lot of times I would want to distract myself by scrolling on Instagram or Facebook. And I'm not saying there's not a time and place for that. I love to stay connected, but I recognize that I would sometimes scroll for an hour or two.
Yeah.
And then it's like, then I couldn't hardly sleep. My mind would start drifting. And then I'd think about narc number 2. And so I got to where I was looking into guided meditations and I'd lay in bed. And some of them lasted 20 minutes, some of them lasted 3 hours, and I'd fall asleep listening to them. But I did not realize how much that helped me until I started reading about the benefits of guided meditations after the fact. But the biggest thing too is for women to give themselves grace. Like you said, there's going to be a time and day for a Netflix and a wine day, and they don't need to beat themselves up.
Right.
But they also need to try to be gentle with themselves but still put in that work because they're going to be better off. Because like you just said, you go out and you start dating too quickly, you're going to find another one just like I did. I had not done any inner work. I had not done any work. And I went from that 24-year marriage right into a relationship for almost 2.5 years with one that was worse.
Yeah.
And so that really, I hope the listeners understand that really shows me, oh gosh, I need to step back and really work on some things where this won't happen again. Because narc number 2 was so good and charismatic and just love bombed the shit out of me.
They always are.
Like I did. I remember 2 months in, I was like, I found my soulmate.
Yep. He's amazing. He's just like me. That's because he's copying you.
I hate when memories would come across my phone because I would have like these memories. And I had this one picture where I'm holding Starbucks and I've got my feet crossed in front of the fireplace. And I was like, when your boyfriend goes out and buys you Starbucks in the snow and builds you a fire, which were really breadcrumbs in the big scheme of things.
Right.
But still, it was like seeing that memory come back. And then I was like, yeah. And then I remember he got to a point where he would leave the house to go buy him a Monster and then not come back and bring me anything, like no coffee. I'd have to,
Yes.
yeah, I would have to be like, well, why didn't you get me a coffee? You were just out. I always get coffee because he didn't have a coffee maker at his house. And so he would always go get me Starbucks. But that ended after about a year. And then it was like, I was shit out of luck.
That's right. Well, that's what I was telling people, because it's weird to say something like that. They're like, gosh, that doesn't seem like such a red flag, but it becomes one when they're giving you all this good. And then he goes out and doesn't give you a thing. Mine did the same thing. Mine would fix himself a meal and not fix me anything. And I'm sitting right there. And I'd be like, what about me? Like, where's my dinner or whatever? He'd be like, oh, I didn't think you wanted anything, but you didn't even ask. You know what I mean? Like, it's always a way to make you feel bad, like it's your fault. So just listen to what your partner is saying. Are you having to explain this to other people to say like, hey, does this make sense to you? That might be a red flag if it's a lot of different things. It's horribly exhausting. We could go on and on forever and ever, but just go listen to both our podcasts and you can learn so many more things. But I agree with you on the guided meditation. I found one on YouTube that's for sleeping. And then I did a hypnosis session with someone who's going to be on my show. And she did a personalized meditation for me. If I can't fall asleep, I put that one on. It's personalized to me. So I'll have her information later on.
That's awesome.
That meditation to me is so good because it really relaxes your brain. And you can find them all over YouTube, but I found one on YouTube and I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like in 10 minutes, I'm dead asleep. It's so great.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many things out there, and I'm not against Western medicine, and therapy really did serve me in the time that I went to therapy. But once I kind of wanted to get out of my head and drop into my body to start learning to heal my nervous system, meditation was key, and guided meditations, because you can't stay in your head constantly and repeat the thing. We don't want to stay in that victim mentality where we're just repeating the story over and over and over, where my mom did this and this is what I did. And so there's a time and place for that. I did that for the first year where I wanted to constantly go over what they did to me and how it made me feel. And you need to do that. But then it comes to a point where you're like, okay, I need to heal my nervous system, learn to love myself. That way I can really thrive and be happy in life. Like you said, it doesn't mean they have to go write a book or start a podcast, but where they can truly be happy and not feel like they're walking on eggshells 24/7. And I went through a phase, I don't know if you went through this, but when I started healing, I was kind of tired a lot. And I was watching a video of Dr. Nicole LaPera, the holistic psychologist, and she was saying that oftentimes when your nervous system, when your body finally recognizes that it's safe, your body will kind of shut down because it knows it finally can rest.
Yes.
And when I
slept so much.
That really hit home for me. And it made me feel good because I thought, what the hell is wrong with me? I'm coming home at 4:00 after work wanting to get on my robe. And I really thought, oh my God, is this depression? Do I have depression? But then when I saw that video, I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense, because I've now been out of this relationship. It was probably around 9 months at that point.
Okay.
I think my body was like, you know what, we're really fixing to get some rest because you've needed it for a long time.
Right.
And my body feels completely different now. Like,
it's so good.
I have zero anxiety now.
Isn't it wonderful? I mean, it's so amazing. And I remember that I was like sleeping all the time. And, I think there probably is a layer of depression in there anyway.
Yeah.
From everything you're going through. But I remember reading that like you've been in fight or flight and your nervous system is so dysregulated.
Yeah.
That it doesn't know what to do. And so when you're trying to regulate, oh gosh, even just sleep. Oh, it was great just to sleep and be in peace and not have anything to worry about. It It's so hard to explain to someone to leave because I remember being trauma bonded for so long and, you were there 24 years. It's hard to leave.
Yeah.
Even when you don't know what's going on, but it's so much better on the other side when you're living in peace, so.
It really is.
Yeah. Well, we're out of time for today. Well, Tiffany, I'm so glad you were here. I'm so glad we could talk. And I'm going to have everything in the show notes for everybody, but where can people find you?
Okay. Well, I've got Facebook and Instagram, and it's called Tiff Talks. I have a podcast. I'm going to work on the link. We are going to be changing some things up, which I'm excited about.
Great.
It's basically my theme is healing one human at a time, because that's really what it is. Just one human at a time, because we all deserve love. We all deserve to thrive. And this is not the end. And I want everybody to understand, like, no matter how you feel in this moment, it's just a moment. So, but yeah, they can find me on Instagram or Facebook.
Well, thank you so much. And we'll have everything in the show notes so everybody can get a hold of you and listen to your podcast and everything. Thank you again for being here.
And the podcast, I was going to tell you, I forgot to say this. So right now, the podcast is on iHeart, Amazon, Audible, and Spotify. Spotify is the main one. And we're going to try to get it on Apple. We had some glitches with some technology, but hopefully it will be on Apple within the next 2 weeks.
That's awesome. Okay, great. Yeah, because we want to find you everywhere. So
yeah,
that's right.
And I need to have you on my show too. So
okay, I'd be happy to come on your show and talk about all the stuff that we talked about today. That's for sure.
Yeah,
so, well,
for sure.
Thanks everybody for listening today. And if anything resonated with you today, if you would go on social media and of course find Tiffany, comment on all the social media posts, and of course leave a review on Apple and Spotify and let Podcast Land know that you love us. And Tiffany, again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Great. And guys, don't forget, your voice matters. Go out and live the life that you've always wanted to live. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Bye. Thank you for joining me today on the That's Where I'm At podcast. Did the story today resonate with you? Do you think others would benefit from hearing the stories we are telling? Please go to Apple or Spotify right now to leave a review so everyone in podcast land will know you love the show. We want to continue sharing stories of hope and healing. I'll be back next time. I'll talk to you then.